Good day, wherever you are. We know that we are in over 140 countries around the world right now. And this is Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. Uh, we're just delighted that you have joined us today. We do have a special guest, and in a moment, we will be turning to him to get to know him so that we can have our conversation today. This is a very, very special program. So, again, this is Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We on air 24/7 actually, and there are different programs that you can listen to, and you can visit lovebay.com and find out. We do have different schedules, music programs that you certainly don't want to miss. And so we're just delighted that you've joined us today. And I am your host, Dr. Francis, and sometimes called Dr. FM. And I'm very, very delighted that our brother Theo has worked tirelessly over the years to actually bring this program on air. He is a brother who is very, very special, not just in North America. He is based in Canada. But this program, like I said, it's in over 140 different countries around the world. And so we're really just delighted to have a brother like him who is dedicated to making sure that cultural aspects of Africa and people of African descent are preserved and celebrated around the world. So this is a real honor, and I feel very, very privileged to be the host of this Africa Today, or Today's Africa. And so we do have a number of things that we really need to get into and introduce our brother, Dr. Ochuko, Patrick Otoba. And I was like, this is October, and his last name is Otoba. And I'm like, this is a nice way to start. So we're really, really delighted. And again, I'd like to give big thumbs up to our brother Theo for being the engineer behind this vision over the years. He has been in this business for many, 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 many years. And we're delighted that he's continuing to promote and facilitate things that bring Africa on the map. So we're going to be in dialogue. One of the things that come to mind, I think of the words of our brother, Professor Lumumba, Patrice Lumumba, who is based in Kenya. And he says, Africa comes to the table. Are we coming to the table to be eaten? Are we coming to the table to participate in the meal with everybody else? Or are we coming to the table to dialogue? And these are different aspects that we're going to be looking into with the different topics that we're going to be covering. And it's going to be diverse topics. And even listeners, if you have a topic that you would like us to cover, please feel free to put that in the chat or email us, whatever means you can use to communicate to us. And also feel free to drop in questions, comments along the way as well, so that you can participate. And this is teamwork. We're going to be inviting different people to journey with us. And we're also looking forward to your participation as well. So again, welcome to Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio with your host, Dr. Francis, Dr. FM. And today we're delighted to have our brother who is based in Burkina Faso. His name is Dr. Ochuko Patrick Otoba. And so, Brother Patrick, Dr. Otoba, thank you for joining us today. We know that it's a different time zone where you are right now, but we're delighted that you have made this sacrifice to be with us today. And so we certainly want to get to know you and get to hear some of the things that you're passionate about. I discovered that you are an activist, you are a writer, you are a social worker, you are a business facilitator, And within all that, some of the things that you do is fighting teenage girl trafficking. I know that boys are also trafficked these days, but for today, we're going to focus on that, and you will definitely have the opportunity to fill us in and share other aspects of what you do so that we get to know you. So tell us a little more about yourself. Who is Dr. Patrick Otoba?
Thank you very much, Dr. Francis. Patrick Otoba is a nobleman born in Delta State of Nigeria, and he's a human rights activist and a theologian, and like any other human being, I'm a humanitarian. So that's all I can say briefly for now. But as time goes on, maybe we can touch other areas.
We definitely will, Dr. Otoba. I'm just fascinated. You did not hesitate to say that you are a human activist. I know that there are people who are also activists for different things. It could be environment, it could be animals, but you said you focus on human beings, and that is encouraging. And then you also mentioned that you are a theologian. That's quite a combination there. I'm hoping that you can enlighten us on some of those things that you're passionate about as far as your relationship with God is concerned. And that's one thing I really appreciate so much about Africa and Africans. We do not apologize for our faith in the Creator, in God, and that is encouraging. And then, of course, you say that you are a humanitarian. So, when it comes to the topic before us today, could you let us know what what is it that made you respond to this? What did you see that made you to end up saying you want to fight against teenage girl trafficking?
All right. In life, everything boils down to experience and passion. When you experience certain things, then the cognitive sense will pose out some questions to you, and only you knows how to get the answers. So basically, the youthful life, I can say that the average youth from Nigeria, so to say, they are people who are prone um, they migrate a lot. So in the process of this migration, there are some illegal, while some are legal. So I find myself questioning myself on the illegal migration, the reason for that. And along the line, I discovered that what normally pushes, or the strong motivator for that legal immigration is the fact that uh, maybe driven out of uh, uh, motivated by you want to live, you want to survive by all means. So the only option left for you is to migrate out, whereby there is no legality, you have to do it by illegality. And so along the line of this migration, a lot of things happened why the youth wants to survive. So I discovered that in the line of struggling to survive, there's an ugly actions that normally popped up. And among these ugly actions, I discovered that the girl child trafficking was one of the ugly actions that took place. And whereby you don't have someone or institutions or organization to address it, then it took a larger scale that someone must need to address. So I decided to address it, to research, to carry out some actions, and here I am.
That sounds like a very, very interesting journey and obviously fascinating. I mean, you're talking about something you have seen and witnessed. And so we're not talking about something someone came up with behind a desk, trying to analyze and read and research. No, you're talking about experiential knowledge here. And this is I have 5 daughters and many others that I have adopted. And so for me, this topic is something that is very, very close to my heart. And so what do you see? What did you see or what do you understand to be? I know you mentioned survival. Young people want to survive. A girl child want to survive. But what else is behind this? Is that the only challenge? Survival? Is that it, or are there more things that are happening under this whole thing?
Yeah, initially, the survival is secondary. But when you live in a country or in a community, the first thing that comes to your mind is the communal living. We live by collective effort. But when you see that collective effort is dying, then that love that connects the community is no longer, you feel alone. Then you decide to know who you belong to. So along the line, I discovered that the penurious life that is being imposed on these youths is the motivator of this survivor. They want to live above poverty line. So what do they do to live above poverty line? Because there is a difference when you say poverty and abject poverty. So poverty, one can understand. Maybe I don't have enough money, I cannot eat what I want to eat. But when you say abject poverty, that means I cannot afford to eat. So what do the community take that for? Do they take that lightly, or they just say, okay, it's a normal thing? Anyway, the youth I discovered along the line never took that normal. It's abnormal. So they want to survive. They want to live above that line of poverty. That's the first thing. The penurious living.
Wow. You are hitting the nail on the head here, sir. And again, this is Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, coming all the way from the studios in Canada, in Toronto. Of course, broadcasting around the world. Like I mentioned earlier, we are in 140 different countries. And today we are privileged to have Dr. Ochuko Patrick Otoba, who is an activist, a writer, a social worker, business facilitator based in Burkina Faso. And our topic today is fighting the teenage girl trafficking. And this is a topic that is very, very close to many of our hearts. Now, Dr. Otoba, you are mentioning some things here that are really profound. You're talking about survival, or young people want to survive. Obviously, something has happened. You made reference to communal living. Something has happened within our communities that has made our young people realize there has to be more to life. And so I guess sometimes people talk about the survival of the fittest, but I think it can also be pushed to survival of the meanest, because when you realize you want to live above the poverty line, as you said, and then you realize that there's another level where you say, I can't afford not to eat. That's a totally different level altogether. I mean, you have escalated things to a totally different level. And so I am just wondering, what do you do? Is there some kind of a partnership with others in doing this? Because Dr. Otoba, this is big. This is a huge undertaking for any one person to try to look into. So who are some of the partners you have in this endeavor?
Well, practically, I have no partners. No partners. I go into this, or I went into this alone, with a driving urge, looking for some answers that could meet in between. When I say in between, I'm considering the driving factor, which could be the community or maybe the government. Okay. And in my own area of trying to understand in between the line, that is, if the government wants to implement a policy, and then the policy became maybe impoverishment policy, then I come to dialogue with myself, trying to understand the law of boomerang. So I convinced myself that, okay, if I have to find out what's happening, then I should use the principle of this boomerang. That is an object that you throw and then it returns back to you. Practically, we all say scammer or something like that, a law of reaction, something like that. So if from my own native language adage that says you cannot force, you can force a child to sit beside hot fire, but you cannot prevent him from moving his body while sitting beside the hot fire. You can actually force him to sit, but you cannot prevent him from moving his body. So that means any person that is being impoverished, if that's what the government wants it to be, then they should be prepared for these reactional consequences of what this youth is going to do that will not affect the whole society. So this is what I reasoned out, and I said, okay, I want to understand in between who is actually behind the perpetrator of the act. Since I already know the one that is instigating it is the impoverishment, so who are getting these acts? I discovered the act is in between the. So not only that, I discovered that what other people are thinking about the girl child is not the actual thing. The girl child did not originate it. She is a victim. So, and it comes back to us. Let's ask ourselves a question like what people normally says. Even the learned people normally says that prostitution is an old trade, so therefore it cannot be eradicated, and it has gone into the minds of people. So we all sit back and watch, and we partake. But that's not what we are talking about. We are talking about victim, a victim of circumstances. So the girl child, as I discover, was a victim of these migrational consequences of people trying to survive. So they made up their own mind to survive by trafficking the girl child and selling the girl child to survive at the detriment of the girl child. This is all the idea. And I restrict it to not mondial, but just within the African context. The African context of why the youth, some of the African youths are all over everywhere trying to survive with these actions and reactions.
Wow, you are opening a can of worms, sir, because the the aspects you're touching on are very, very close to us as Africans and people of African descent, and obviously friends of Africa as well. We're talking about the girl child becoming a victim of circumstances, and the circumstance has been created by us within our communities, where the girl child, for years, I know that we have had some organizations that have said enough is enough. We need to make sure that there is equality when it comes to our children, that the boys and girls are created equal, and that we need to relate to them and provide resources to both without thinking about this is male, this is female, but these are human beings. Now, it seems to me that we're talking about an ongoing paradigm shift here, where I think, in terms of value, some of our African brothers and sisters and governments have placed a monetary value on our children in such a way that they have become commodities, which is really, really sad. I mean, it's painful, and yet this is reality, because you live with this, you see this, you're fighting this every time. So, what kind of response do you get? I know you said that you have no partners, but I would like to believe that you have had dialogues with some government representatives, government officials. What are they saying? What do they see as a solution to this?
Well, as for a solution, everybody wants, they want you, for example, we are talking now on the radio. Some may want to say, okay, what do you proffer as a solution? That means you don't have a solution. You want someone to proffer the solution. Then if I come up with a solution, are you ready to accept that solution? Another thing, because what is on ground is something that is has become a phenomenon that we cannot talk about it the whole throughout the whole day. If we have to stay in this studio throughout the whole day, we might not be able to exhaust it, but we can pick out the essential part in the whole scenario. Solutions are there. There are solutions, but the acceptance of the solution is what matters. So that's brought about this issue of partnership, right? Okay, if, for example, uh, I come to you as an organization, and such organization will be the one known, for example, the known ones, because you have the bigger ones and the small ones. And then the bigger ones maybe are working closer to the government, trying to influence them in making good policies, right? So you are a small organization, so no one cares about what you have. But along the line, you have to speak. So actually, when you talk about partnership, that is what I think about. As people you communicate with, there are many. For example, you have the social welfare of a country. Well, I'm very good in relationship with them here in Burkina Faso. And you have the bigger organizations like those who seem to cover such phenomenon. I have some also who I speak with. And so we can say, okay, there are partners in that sense. But to me, when I say partners, there are those who, like when you read the histories of how the slave trade come to an end, you find out that there were two brothers actually that sacrificed a lot to bring it to an end. So when I talk about partnership, I mean those, when I say I don't have, is those who will share your idea and come to agree with you that, okay, this thing needs to be stopped, and then work it out and stop it. That is what I call partners.
Mhm. So I know there's still some aspects that we need to look into. And I still feel that before we move into the next, I would like to find out on behalf of our listeners here, what do you actually see as a solution? And I will come back to you in a minute. Just reflect on that and let us know what do you see as real solutions to this issue where our girl children uh, have been victimized, traumatized. Many of them have left their countries of origin illegally. They've been smuggled. They have ended up in other parts of Africa and other parts of the world where they never thought they would go. This has rocked their world. This has affected them emotionally, mentally, psychologically, socially, spiritually, in all dimensions of life. And I guess that's where I'm also hoping that we would hear the theologian side of you in terms of how is that um, focused solution emerging from some of these. So I will give you a minute to respond to that. Again, listeners, we are welcome here at Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, coming all the way from the studios in Toronto, in Canada. We are in 140 different countries around the world. This is Africa Today. Today's Africa, where we look at various topics that affect um, our lives in different environments. And we do bring in guests. And today we are privileged to have Dr. Ochuko, Patrick Otoba, who is a writer, an activist, a social worker, business facilitator. And today's topic, we're looking at fighting the teenage girl trafficking. And he is someone who is actively involved in this. We know that you've been focusing in West Africa at the moment, but we know that this is an Africa-wide problem, really. So, Dr. Otoba, fill us in on what do you see as possible or what do you see as solutions to these matters of girl trafficking, teenage girl trafficking?
All right. First and foremost, when you discover the root of a thing, good enough, you have a very good start. So by discovering that the penurious life that is being imposed on the community, basically the first victims is the parents, the unit of social life. So once the parent goes wrong, the schools are affected. Thereby, the religious organizations are also affected. So I come back to thinking theologically. The impoverishment policy, number one, should be stopped. Those elites who are there in the government trying to establish policies that will fit the citizens should establish good policies. This impoverishment policy is what I refer to as
Oh, sounds like our brother is muted or he is having technical problems here. He's back.
hello.
He's back.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Welcome back.
And once you pelt someone with pebbles, you are asking for rocks in return. So the impoverished policy should be stopped. Let's promote good policies that will empower our children to live a good life, at least above the average poverty line, so to say, according to the allies who brought out those words of living below poverty line and living above poverty line. I don't really know what they mean by that, but it is actually, it's a fact that people are living in abject poverty, misery. It should stop. The second thing is the parents. You know, the social life, so to say, is being balanced by this communal and religious. So once the religious aspect of a human being is in problem, he doesn't know what is good and bad anymore, then it is very, very difficult to make a correction on such perpetrators because everybody wants to justify. So that brings us back to a moral education, a moral education system in the schools. Parents and schools have to work together to instill a moral education, a sound moral education for a child to know what is bad and what is good, and not by justifying between two evils. Because as it is, people are justifying, it's a moral conundrum. People want to justify between stealing and armed robbery. So I prefer to steal instead of armed robbery. But the two is evil. You should know what is good and what is bad. But when you are out of that because of surviving, you want to justify two evils, then you are under depravity. So the people living under depravity actually lack the moral sense. So Africa, one of the biggest problems in Africa, especially my country, is that moral education. It has to begin from even the parents, right to the primary schools. They should establish moral education. Sometimes ago, when I was young, we used to have civic education, but these days we don't hear things like that again. There's no more civic education. So I feel they should establish it once again. I will volunteer to even go from school to teach moral education because I'm a moral activist as well. So that is the two things for now I can say we can deliberate on and establish a fact from.
This is profound, sir. This is profound. Thank you for this food for thought. And we certainly don't want it to just become food for thought, but we want to be able to say, where do we go from here? And obviously, when we come together, we think of the 3Ds. We dialogue to discover so that we decide what the next steps are. And sir, you're right on the money. You talked about this impoverishment policies approach should stop. And obviously, we know that there are so many stakeholders in this, people who have perpetuated some of these policies for years, and they obviously don't want to see a change because they're benefiting from it. But you're saying that should stop. And then you mentioned the role of the parents. True, we have a system outside of the home that influences how we do things, but the home itself should become the foundation of what we do as nations, as communities. And so you're talking about the schools as well, where you are raising the importance of moral education. And we know that the schools are tied to a system outside of ourselves. I know that there are some families that have chosen to homeschool their children, but we also realize that has limitations. I mean, it has pros and cons. And obviously, the education system as we have it in many of our African countries also has advantages and disadvantages. And obviously, the moral education piece that you raised is very, very important. I am just wondering, Brother Theo, if we have any of our listeners who have made comments or asking questions so that we continue the dialogue here to discover things that will help us to decide what the next steps are. And feel free to interject and let us know, Brother Theo. Brother Theo works tirelessly behind the scenes. He makes sure that the engineering aspect of Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio progressing, and everybody is able to hear us live. And we are really, really just honored to know that we are on Facebook, on LinkedIn, YouTube, and StreamYard as well. So again, this is Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. This is your host, Dr. FM. And today we're privileged to have our brother, Dr. Ochuko Patrick Otoba, who is an activist, a human activist. And we are talking about fighting teenage girl trafficking, which is really a very, very sad reality that is affecting many, many of our African countries. And our brother here has offered some solutions. Now, what do you see as a curriculum or an approach to this moral education you have mentioned?
Yeah, a curriculum, I'm not an educationist, but curriculum, as we see it, is some facts that are not they are established facts. For example, a child should know what is called a child should know that
Say that again.
citizenship. When you say you are a citizen, a patriot, parents also should have a little bit knowledge of what their laws talk about. Sometimes you just see people in Africa, they talk about constitution. So most parents don't know what the constitution is all about. They don't know, they don't know left and right. They just hear people, police just come and arrest you. You don't even know what you have done. You think that what you have done is good, and then they come to arrest you. So you don't have a knowledge. So the curriculum you should be able to teach some fundamental issues to parents and the children. That is, if you know what a patriot is, citizen of a country is, you will know what your responsibilities are. Building up a community or a country or a state. So when these are established in the curriculum, before maybe if you want to start in primary school, maybe from primary 6, if you want to take it from primary 6 onto the secondary schools. But to me, I believe if you start from primary 3 is better. Then before the child comes out of the secondary school, he or she must have known a lot what it means to be a citizen, a patriot, what it means to be good or bad, what it means to contribute, responsibility to contribute to the upbringing of a community. And bet me, most of the parents, the problem we have these days, most of the parents are the first to know about their own child misbehavior. If your child is a thief, definitely he or she started while you were his or her parent. You knew. What did you do? So if you know something about the constitution of your country, which I feel is a fundamental, is a right as well. I can say it's a right for you to know about your constitution and about the small laws, or what they call them, the codes that guides the small behaviors that we behave. You should know that, not justifying your child's behavior, because if your child is steals, then definitely one day is going to be an armed robber. Definitely is going to be a terrorist. So you knew that if it goes out of that your home, it's going to go to the school, whereby in the school he's going to infiltrate the schools, and then before you know, the community is in trouble. Everybody now runs around because of one person. So I feel that the curriculum should instill these two principal factors of parental knowledge of the constitution of a country. Not only the police, the parents should know. Then the schools should instill these basics of responsibility, knowing good and bad in the children, so that when they grow up, they own up to their own behavior.
Dr. Otoba, you are a straight shooter, brother. You are calling it what it is. You're putting responsibility on us as parents to not just change our ways of thinking, but to change what we do and what we say as we interact with our children. And you talked about citizenship, and rightly so, that citizenship is connected to responsibility. Oftentimes, we as parents, we're not making time to help our children understand life within the context of a community and within the context of the nation. Our South African brothers and sisters have promoted the concept of Ubuntu. I am because we are, and that we have this collective life. Yes, we have different families and we pick up different ways of doing things within our families, but our worldviews should have these core values you're talking about, the commitment to citizenship and being responsible, moral education, and making sure that our children understand that you are not an island. It's not just me, myself, and I, but there are other people around us, and they influence what we do and how we do things. And therefore, collectively, we can make changes to how the girl child is treated and related to as a human being. And I think it starts with myself as a father. how do I relate to my daughters? What kind of values am I displaying? So this is powerful, sir. This is powerful. Uh, I know when I mentioned Ubuntu, you chipped in something, and I didn't catch
Yeah.
it. I think you said something, I didn't catch it. Would you like to revisit that?
No, I was trying to say that my book that I wrote, the title is The Dilemma of Fijiro, is
Okay.
actually about this Ubuntu of a thing, the connectivity of the social life that we live, the boomerang of the actions that we put forward that we never thought is going to be boomerang, but it the actions we actually put forth every day, the boomerang. So not only some people say because some stakeholders in some evil things, they don't want to stop because they are deep into it. They don't want to lose. They want to what do you call it? Uh, impute some bad policies to keep their their self ego. When you are doing that to enrich yourself at the detriment of others, then be very sure that that action you performed, that you have thrown out, will come back to you. It's a boomerang. It will come back. And when they come back in dozens.
Hmm.
And then we have the red devils in the society. We have them all around. We created them. So in my book, I say the society is even the antagonist. They created things, conflicts, things that made us destroy the values that we have. And then they later come to judge us and condemn us. That
Hmm.
is that is an error of the elites. You cannot go to school after schooling, learning all those kind of big words, psychology, medicology, and neurology, and all those kind of things. Then you come back, you cannot impart anything into the children. All what we read is book. No, it can't stop like that. So I try to say that okay, we are connected one way or the other. So we might have to receive punishment of other people's mistake.
Hmm. Oh wow. This is profound, sir. This is profound. I mean, you're touching, like I said, on things that relates to all of us as parents, to all of us as people concerned about real life in Africa and globally as well, because we do have contributions to the global world. I mean, to the global um, aspect of life, and so oh, this is this. I mean, you're touching on something, sir. That is, I mean, I'm just like, wow.
Mm,
We need to shift gears. There's no question about it.
yeah.
And you're saying that we can't just learn things and learn topics and subjects and content and not allow that to impact what we
Yeah.
do, you know? So
It's
I guess,
hypocrisy.
yeah,
Dr. Francis, that is hypocrisy, right?
yes, it is, sir.
It is. Because I cannot go to school after learning, then my child, maybe I am a doctor, for example, a medical doctor, I save life, then my child is a killer. How come?
Hmm.
How come? That means I, as a father, in the first instance, have failed. People can blame it on devils, you know. They say it's devil work and so. Okay, right, we know there are devils and so. But then the community life we live, especially in Africa, it is quite different from what we learn in the white man's school. What we actually learned from our youth when we were younger was this being the brother's keeper. You are your brother's keeper was what we hear when we were young. But right now, that slogan is out of the system because we are no longer our brother's keepers. The Ubuntu is gone. So we need to reinstate those moral values back into our system.
You can say that again. I'm hoping that in one of our upcoming um, sessions we will be able to address issues of education. What is true education? Yes, it's true that, I mean, you and I, we have studied from a Western approach, but still we are Africans. Yes, to some degree we've been influenced by that. But what we're doing now is let's use the information we have to put us in a different context where we can address our own issues from within an African context. And you, as a practitioner, I mean, you are highlighting that for us. Brother Theo, I'm just wondering if we have anybody who might have um, mentioned a comment or a question to our brother. Um, Again, this is Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We are streaming on 140 or in 140 different countries around the world. And this is Today's Africa. And we are privileged to have our brother Ochuko Patrick Otoba, who is an activist. And our topic today is fighting the teenage girl trafficking. Dr. Otoba, I'm realizing that we have like 7 more minutes to go. We have to bring you back. We have to bring you back. And I know that sometimes our listeners, actually, after the fact, they will listen to the broadcasts and then ask questions. So I can assure you that with this topic, we are going to have some questions that we will be inviting you to respond to so that we can continue to learn, but not just learn to obtain knowledge, but we want that to be experiential knowledge so that we can practice some of the things that you talked about. But one of the things that came to my mind just listening to you is what needs to happen? How can we engage the youth in such a way that they become part of the solution? I mean, yes, we do have parents. Yes, we do have schools. Yes, we do have governments. But what is the role of young people? How much attention are we giving or paying our young people in terms of listening to their ideas, to their creativity, to their understanding of the world, to this focused solution approach? What do you see in terms of in the level of participation of young people in becoming part of the solution?
Young people want to participate. You know, the saying goes, the young shall grow. It's a popular saying. And then in our own ideology, like a father or parents, we normally pray this prayer: let my child be greater than me. So, meaning to say, we believe that one day we are going to die, and then the younger ones are going to come up. So, the participation line should be on that sense, the responsibility shared. They should be engaged properly. The youth should be engaged, and then they should be listened to. They have a lot of things to say, but no one is listening. I rescued a young lady, and I will leave you with this story. When I traveled almost 490 kilometers to rescue a young girl of 15, I, after the whole hurdles rescue this young girl, before we got to the rescue ground, she has already been forced to sell sex to pay to another person. Now, after rescuing her, we came home back to my base. Then I'm now preparing to return her to parents, rehabilitation, and asking questions for her to come up with what happened and why. Why do you? She told me. He said, brother. I said yes. He said, what you have done is a very great thing, but I'm afraid I will not return back. I want to continue with the sex work. I was shocked. I asked her why.
Hmm.
She told me that look, when they brought me in here, they have tried to force me to do this sex work, but I have refused. I fought so hard. I met some people on the street. I complained, but nobody listened to me. Finally, they were able to force me into this. Now you come to rescue me. So it's useless. I'm already in it. That small word touches me because it seems that she lived in a society where she passes human beings on a daily basis, but no one came, no one cares, no one came to rescue, no one cares to know what's happening, even though they know what's happening. Then now that she's into the bad thing, you want to condemn her for being that which she has thought she didn't want to be. The story is because she was not listened to, she was not engaged, she didn't know anything. So the youth need that. Like this, your forum, I decided to show up today because I love the idea. We are discussing and it's your ideology, it's your project. So the project is, what are we doing actually? We are trying to communicate with people, with parents. This is what parents should do. They should communicate with their children. Try to know. The government should communicate with the youth. Try to know their problems. Normally, we read it in the books that the juvenile delinquencies. Yes, what are they? Juvenile delinquencies, what are they? So this is a lot of things to talk about on this. Not only to
Wow. This is powerful. We have a listener who just made reference to it'll be interesting for us to also hear about the boy child being trafficked. And so sounds like we have to have a part two of this. But for today, Dr. Ochuku, um, Patrick Otoba, thank you so much for being with us. And we barely scratched the surface here, and we need to definitely go deeper. And I know that most of the time our listeners would be asking questions and making comments later on, and we'll definitely find a way to make sure that we incorporate these. And again, we're just so delighted to have our brother, Dr. Ochuku, Patrick Otoba. He is based in Burkina Faso. He's a Nigerian brother who has a heart for Africa. He's an activist, a human activist, a writer, social worker, business facilitator. It sounds like we need to give him time and have him share some of the writings that he has done. He's a writer. He's a published author and a social worker. And of course, this is today's Africa on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, coming from the studios in Toronto, in Canada. And this is your host, Dr. FM. And we are delighted that you have been with us today. Our brother, Dr. Ochuku, Patrick Otoba, thank you, thank you, thank you. But before we let you go, you might say, listen, there's one thing I feel I would like to say in uh, 10 seconds. Is there something on your mind that you would like to share with us before we let you go? If you need 15 seconds, go ahead and do that as well.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Francis, and then your partners for the great work. And I'd like to encourage the populations that are following this FM to always participate in asking questions. Then let's share and then impart the knowledge we have and the experiences we have with the youths so that they can learn from people's past experiences and then better their own life. Then the most important thing is we should live positively, not
Mm.
negative.
Wow, that is profound. You just reminded me of someone who said that each one of us is responsible for the energy we bring into any space that we come into or we come in. And so you're absolutely right. Let's live positively. Let's ask questions. Let's continue to dialogue, to discover, so that we decide on what the next steps are. And your words about engaging our young people is something that we all need to learn, sir. And so thank you very much for being with us. Again, this is Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, coming all the way from the studios in Toronto, in Canada. And this is your host, Dr. FM. Thank you very much for being with us today. We look forward to being with you again. And we meet every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we know that we are global. We are in 140 different countries. And it's been our privilege and our joy to be with us today. And as I said, Brother Otoba, please know that we will have you back. This is not a threat, it's a promise. So we want you to know that you have given us food for thought, and we definitely want to bring you back so that we learn together. Again, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for being with us today. We look forward to being with you. We meet again every Saturday at 11 Eastern Standard Time. And again, this is your host, Dr. FM. Thank you for being with us on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, coming all the way from the studios in Toronto, in